Well, so here we are at the end of these three very diverse projects and on different stage of completion. We're gonna go straight to the roundtable chaired by Julien Schechter. Hello, Julien. And to talk with him today, we have Silvia Gonzalez that have just presented a video. We have also Sylvain, sorry, I have Sylvain Cardin, am I? Yes, Sylvain Cardin, sorry, who are from the scientific committee of the GSGS, and if I'm not mistaken, Miss Assunta Fiorentino. So Julien, do you take the helm from here?
Yes, thank you, Sam. Thank you very much. It was very interesting to follow this video with you guys. Thank you for being with us today. Of course, everyone can participate. Just raise your hand in the application or even on video if you want to do it. It's like this, but it's more fun if you do it in the Zoom app. I try to do all those roundtables with first a statement and then an interrogation that I want to share with you. The statement for this one is quite simple, and if you've seen many health-oriented serious games, most of them have a simulation inside them. So my statement for today is simulation is the key in healthcare-oriented games, and I want to talk with you about that statement. And the question is, are actual games really meeting the challenge of human emotions, as we have seen in the two last projects? This is also something really important in the nursing capacities of those professionals. So first of all, maybe around on that, can serious games really reproduce the situations and prepare healthcare professionals to improve their skills before they do it in real life? Because we've seen, although there's the noise, although there's the situation on your screen, is it really preparing you to the same things are in a nursing hospital or in a situation with someone that is actually at the end of his life? So I really appreciate if the authors could give their first maybe feeling about that. Are serious games up to the challenge yet to do that? Maybe we'll start with you, Silvia Gonzalez.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know. I hope. Yes, but I think it's really important to assess the behavioral impact of the serious game, because yes, of course, what I see today through the different serious game that were presented today, it seems it's quite realistic. So we see that the situation is quite the same. So people in the hospital who are so the noise, baby crying, etc., etc. But at least it would be interesting to assess, to evaluate before the use of the game, the abilities, the ability of I don't know, of the nurse to in such situation. And after the use, I don't know if the need is 1 month, for example, we could compare the abilities of the nurse before and after using the game. And for me, it's really important. It's really important that the situation is realistic, at least. But it must be realistic in order to help to develop skills and to help to really help nurse or other people to better work in a stressful environment. So.
Thank you for this first input. Maybe Assunta Ferrantino, you're with us as well. How do you see that? Is the games that are actually built right now meeting this challenge? Because it's hard to recreate real life. So are the games meeting the challenge, or are they only first steps and we will see real games in a few years?
I think we cannot very high have something to approach real life, not totally real life. That's the thing. But I think in the training of nurse, it's the serious game is about to offer a training specific to triage nurse that doesn't exist now, and in a specific situation, that's triage process in open system, in open environment where there is some distraction that can be affect our process decision making. And that's the thing, just to maybe to address to nurse, that's important to think about how distraction can interrupt our process decision making. That's, I think it's the aim of the game, just to focus on that problem. It's not only just a training, it's just to focus about this specific specific problem to distraction on open system, like an open environment where there is a lot of distraction.
Actually, you are going towards my second question, because you said something very important. This year's games are aimed to improve some of the skills. For example, focusing on a complex situation with noise around you. But then the question is, should this game be a simulation of what you will find in real life, or should it be a game that just enhance this skill, focusing? And maybe it can be a chess game, or maybe it can be a card game, or it can be anything else. Should really serious games be like a mirror to real life? I don't know who wants to answer. We have also Catherine Skorupa with us, co-author as well. Maybe you want to address that? I just need to open
Yes, exactly. Hi, everybody, and thank you for listening. So we were, I was involved in the first project on speech therapy, so it's a bit less emotionally challenging, but still for the patients, it's emotionally challenging to speak when they have a language disorder. So I think what we should be trying to do is to prepare them, or maybe also prepare the nurses. In the end, it's kind of the same thing, to prepare them for the realistic situations, to have like building blocks of communications ready. I found that very interesting in the end of life game as well, but also in the triage nurse, because it definitely helps the brain. If you've already thought this through, then you have like building blocks for the communication ready made in your mind, and there is less cognitive resource taken by, oh, what am I going to say, how can I say it, how does it work, and you can focus more on the real life emotional impact. I don't know if I make myself clear. It's like your brain has to process everything in the same time in real life. So if we can make it easier by actually preparing communication scenarios or decision scenarios, then that will make the person more able to cope with the emotional stress, which I don't think we can ever recreate in a game in the same way as if it will be in reality. But we're kind of giving them the tools to go into that situation with more preparation, more readiness. So in a way, I think to address your initial question, should we just do games that work on attention, that improve attention or improve selective skills? Maybe yes, but I do like the idea of putting it all together as well, so that the participant really gets the impression, okay, this is how it's going to be like when I go out, with the idea that or this is close to how it's going to be like, with the idea it can never be exactly like that.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because, for example, when you improve in sports, sometimes you've seen tennis players playing with big balls and throwing them just to improve some skills. It has nothing to do with tennis. And the question I'm asking is should really serious games try to be a simulation of reality? Because it's quite hard to do it. So maybe you'll have also the impact of those professionals saying, oh, it's not like the real thing. And it's not a real thing that I can train on. And if you do the separate skill, maybe they won't see it. And then in the situation, they will improve their skills. That's maybe the question I'm asking. Sylvain, Sam, you feel free to intervene at any time, and others as well, if you want to speak.
Yeah, that's very interesting because, like, for example, like the concept of the simulation versus the skill, I think is really the key of serious game, because we often see like mixture of like, okay, we try to be realistic, but we don't have the force to make like a real realistic environment because it takes a hell lot of work, and we need to balance the added value of making these realistic environment. So in some cases, it can be very interesting, for example, for recreating emotion or the stress, for example, the nurse have it. In the same fact, what is the goal of a serious game? So it should always be, when we start a project this way, always in favor to see, okay, what is the goal I need to fulfill? Do I need to learn like a series of tasks or a mechanism that, so is there some memory that I need to get? So maybe the goal is to teach somebody to memorize some instruction, then maybe some like card game on some very simplified version can help you memorize so you can practice faster. Is it something that you want to learn about stress or about the emotion? Realistic simulation are not often the best scenario for inducing emotion and things like that. We can see that you can have like, it's a bit like the uncanny valley we have with like virtual humans. Like, people know they are in a simulation, and they even if you put a hell lot of effort into making this very realistic, they might have the fact that, okay, we are not in the real situation, and they do a bit the opposite. So they take a counter example of what is reality. Of course, in a serious and for training professional, you don't have this problem. What you can see with kids when they are playing, for example, Grand Theft Auto, it's very realistic simulation, but the only thing fun to do is to do something you can't do in reality. So there's always this balance that we need to take care. And for emotions, especially, like often very limited technology have bigger impact on emotion. For example, if to pass emotion, textual is really interesting, because like if you just read text, you can your brain will imagine what is there and sometimes carry more emotion. Sound is super important in this if you want to carry emotion, like having like adequate sound. So basically I think there's no one answer to your question, Julian. It's really like a balance between what is the goal, so who is the public, what is the audience, what time do they have. So if you want to carry emotion and things like that, you need to, the user needs to have time to dig into this emotional states. It's like learning like a relation. If it's memorized, maybe some other form of serious gaming, like a card game or just an interactive menu. For stress situation, we can have just a simple game that you have to multitask different things, and this can also help to train those skills.
Many interesting things in what you said, Sylvain. I will come over again on one or two of those things. Sam.
Yes, I have a question for the authors of La Source project, because what I noticed is there was some screenshot of real software that is used in ER services, so emergency services for triage. And what I was thinking is, did they approach the author of this software to test it as well? Because in the UX, I take my position as a communication guy, and in the UX world, we often test interfaces like this, and they can be a source of stress for the final user. And we use as well serious games to say, okay, we're going to try this UX to know if it's appropriate for this or this line of work. Did they try to mix their training of the people with the people that make the software to help them make better software for the emergencies? I don't know, it's maybe for Ms. Fiorentino.
Yes, I just opened my video. I can't, I'm sorry, I can open, yes. Just, if I understand your question is about how we recreated a software for triage process.
No, I've seen you had a real software. You used real screen.
No, yes, the screen, the left screen where there is the nurse are written some items like measure. It's a real screen about real triage process in one hospital. But if you know, we checked 5 hospitals and nobody had the same process triage. We choose the better suitable interface because there is one is the worst interface possible, and we choose the more simple. And this one was the more simple for everyone.
This is impressive. It means there is no real theory behind triage software processes.
No, there is no. We use patient informatic files, and some hospitals have directly triage process directly in the file patient informatic. In some other, you have a first interface, and after you go in the patients. There is no homogeneous interface or something that we create, and that's the thing in the Swiss scales emergency triage. No.
And everybody has got that same idea about interfaces in the games or in the real life can worsen the experience or make the experience better.
The only thing that is homogeneous in triage process is the rules about Swiss scales triage. It's the regulation about Swiss scales triage is the same for every emergency using this scale. That's the only thing. I cannot choose emergency level if I don't have used the questions, you know. That's the only thing. But the screen, the interface, the design is not the same.
Let me maybe address one more issue with that statement, because, and I'll go back to Sylvain Cardan, because we had a lot of things in his intervention about emotions, and I will get back to this. But first, maybe, Ms. Fiorentino, you are addressing something very, how do you say, very important for the serious game industry, because scale, how much could I do with one game? And you are saying every hospital has a different way of making the triage. How can we do serious games on a scale that is maybe profitable or can be really used by many companies or many professionals in the healthcare, even out of the healthcare, but today we're talking about healthcare. So in the healthcare situations, can we build a serious game that you can scale enough that could be used by enough people, that you can bring enough skills in it, And then people are playing the game and saying, oh, but that's not my reality. If you want to do a simulation and you have to do something that goes for everyone, can you really do it? Or should you focus on something else than simulation? And going back to my first question, because they're all simulations for the moment, what I've seen in healthcare, there are like 80% simulations. So can we build a game that can get enough audience to be efficient? What do you think about that?
Oh, if you see in nursing disciplinary theory, you cannot. It's not when you do healthcare in nursing, you think it's one situation particular. You cannot transform every situation. You know, you have to think about one interaction is one thing. I cannot. We want to create the process, how the process can be the same about the general and not the particular. We want to say, okay, what the nurse have to do when she does triage. She has to ask some question. She has to have some measure vital signs. She has to check for the allergies, check for something that we have to do in the process. But it's not the same for everybody, because the nurse can do the first thing she can do is to take measure pressure, to take pressure, measure something vital sign, and not to ask question first. That's the thing. We want a system very open, because my first step is not the first step on the other nurse. You know what I mean? The system is very open, because my thinking process is not the same about my thinking process of another nurse. I can begin for something and the other nurse can begin about another thing. We open the system at the maximum level just to let the nurse the freedom to begin the process like she wants.
So something like back to basics. Yeah, Sylvia.
Yes.
Your microphone.
Yes.
Open the mic. Your microphone is not open, Sylvia. It helps.
Oops, sorry. You can see me but not hear me. I had a question about the validity, the validity of the items used in the trial serious game. You choose the stressful items, and I wanted to know if those items were chosen because there was like literature, scientific literature, which linked those stressful items with I don't know, but if it really impact the decision making of nursing of nurses during I don't know, triage, okay, or if I don't know, how do you choose those items? Because, for example, there is a very famous paradigm used in research, which is the TSST, the Trial Social Stress Test. And it was chosen that this paradigm involved a cortisol reaction, a salivary cortisol situation, and it was linked with cognitive impairment. Cognitive impairment, that means less attention, less memory, etc. I think I'm sure that every situation can be different, but I'm sure I'm also sure that we have a cognitive function that are generally used to solve a problem. And so I think it's really important to use items that really impact cognitive attention or cognitive process during decision making, etc. So that was my question. Did you choose the stressful items in the game?
I'm sorry. Just the video doesn't work. I don't know how to open.
That's okay.
No, it's okay. It's just a problem. The literature about stress is there is no evidence in triage process about how is the most stressful events. We have something very common, just like aggressive patients or children in RCP, CPR or something like that. We saw something, there is less evidence about distraction in triage, about the impact on decision-making process. We don't have evidence like this now. There is just a little few evidence. We choose the most common distraction meet in triage process, like, okay, how many times I have to wait? Okay, where is my father? He comes 5 minutes ago. Where did you install them in emergency? We choose the most common things that we meet in emergency, and we choose that about literature and our experience in triage process. How is the common things that we find in emergency triage process? But the thing is, the stress is how we think about the stress. It's personal. I can cope very positively the stress. I can cope very negatively the stress. Some evidence show that even if the nursing set or the emergency medical service who answer to phone for a 911 emergency call, they say, I'm not stressed. But when we show the cortisol level, it was high. You know, the person can say, I'm not stressed, but the body, high income level of stress. And that's what that show a study of Madame Leblanc in emergency service technician. They say, I'm not stressed, but the cortisol was high. You know, that's the thing. How I was thinking my stress. And that's, we have to go to ask nursing. And we don't do that in our serious game. But we want to do that after in other project.
I just have a last remark, because I think it's really important to work with a huge team, because there are many results which show that even if the stress is positive or negative, the cortisol is linked with cognitive deficits, and that is really in psychology. For example, in psychology literature of psychology, cognitive psychology, etc., there are a huge there are many results about that, and so it's more general that in nursing. Yes, it's in nursing literature, but cortisol and decision making, cortisol have an impact in decision making. So that is really robust, like result.
Yeah, yes, I agree, because there is some literature that stress improve. Yes,
Even if we have a
improve.
positive.
Yes, but improve loss of memory. And when we ask to people what information about the passion did you recall? So in study, the emergency medical technician didn't say the right information. The information they give to the person was false. It was not the right answer. There is loss of memory, or there is something recall of not good information, and that's impact of decision process making. In triage, maybe the nurse can give false information about patient. He has some allergies and he doesn't have. Maybe because she's stressful.
Yeah. Let me address this that goes in your conversation is how those serious games can induce real emotions. Sylvain Cardin has talked about that, talking about how sound is important, how you should put emotions in it to recreate maybe the emotions you can have in real life. How can serious game today, and everyone can participate if someone else wants to go on that question as well. How can we in serious games put some emotion? Should we maybe turn to VR? Some of the games are doing that. Some of the serious games are going towards VR. Is VR one of the key to induce more emotions, to feel more inside the situation? I don't know if someone wants to pick up on that topic. Is simple text, as Sylvain has told us, or is simple text sometimes more efficient of inducing emotions on the player and not on the professional? And then we'll talk about this difference after. Who wants maybe to address that, Sylvain?
Yeah, for me, for VR, what the main interest about VR is you don't need to learn an interface, or very few, and there's really it's super important, for example, for training things that you have to do physically. So for example, for training gesture, for training body posture, or how to manipulate object in real life, VR is a wonderful tool because it allows you to interact with your own body. So you really move in reality to move in the virtual environment. And this is for me a key aspect. You have also the immersion aspect that you feel inside. You are completely cut from the real world around you, and you are more focused in what you are doing. And then it's important this way in terms of stress and focus and attention and emotion, especially. VR can help, and definitely, but it's not from what I've seen and what I experiment, it's not the key aspect. It helps in the sense that it forces the user to be inside the simulation, and this already helps a lot, especially for a lot of people have difficulty to focus when you give them training, or I've often seen people difficult to focus their attention, and then for this simulation is really really helpful.
Sylvia, for example, did you thought about VR? Because VR can induce, for example, fear. Fear is easy to induce in VR, but is empathy something that you can induce in VR? And in your project, empathy is, of course, very important towards someone who is at the end of his life. So did you thought about using VR? Was it a question of technology in your project? Again, I'll just ask you to open the mic because we'd love to hear what you're saying.
I'm sorry, I forget to open the microphone. I think the question of emotion is really is a bit touchy, but there are theoretical models. There is, for example, there is a model, a theoretical model at the University of Geneva, which propose that we evaluate our environment, and we assess if we are able to do something or not, if the situation meet our norm or the norm of our group, And there are many factors which can induce a positive or negative emotion, depending of mostly depending of our if we are able to do that or not, and if it's something who can hurt or not, or if it's something if we can pursue our goal or not. And so in these models, the authors really show the different level of evaluation. So the novelty and if I can pursue my goal, or if it stops my goal, and if I'm able to do that. And I think if we really choose, if we really shape game which are based on such theoretical models, it can be really useful, I think. I'm not sure I answered the question, but for me, it's really important to use the real situation, ecological situation, but as well some theoretical models. What is an emotion? What is fear? For example, if I hate a dog, if I can be afraid about a dog, but and other people can love dog, for example. So it's really important to use items that were already tested, and so the norm is quite important, and yes, and to have different versions depending of the profile of the gamer. For example, yes, people who like animals, and people who hate animal. I don't know.
The difficulty of building a game that works for everyone. Sam, or maybe Catherine, do you want to address this VR proposition? Is VR one of the key to induce emotions? I could go even further, because we talked about the measures in your blood of whatever substance. We could actually connect right now with a smartwatch or a smart band and introduce some bio measures into a serious games. Maybe the heart rate of the nurse,
yes, heart rate
while doing triage is maybe one of the factors that we could learn about. So I don't know, Sam, Catherine first, of course, with the mic as well.
Yes, I first wanted to address this question of empathy. Because to me, that requires that there is a person you can have empathy with, and some sort of avatar or something like that. So we actually in our we thought about VR, but it's very, I was told, I'm not an expert at all, I was told it was very expensive and you cannot have everything and so on. And I would choose, but this is for us, for our communication training with the patients, I would choose some form of avatar that the patient can actually talk to over VR anytime for our purposes. I don't know about the others, but I was also thinking for maybe for the nurse that talks to a patient in the end of life or whatever, maybe an avatar would also make sense, even if it's not super realistic, and we all know that these are avatars or whatever. We thought for our patients it would be really good, but also because our aim is to provide them with opportunities to talk more freely than in these structured exercises that you've seen. So really to have some transfer towards their daily communication skills. So again, I think it depends what you are targeting. And it's important to yeah, to know your needs and to say, okay, for me, if I want to really train empathy, there needs to be an entity that I have empathy with, more than a fancy environment or something like that.
Yeah, and it's a very interesting question, because it's a question that comes on every GSGS, whether how to master feelings in a game. We know we can master feelings in a game because in video games, standard video games, we have all feelings when we play. So it's possible, we know it. The problem is that from an academic point of view, it's very difficult to assess, to master, and to make rational out of it, because everyone is different. And for example, something that has been very talked about during the last 5 years is PTSD, post-traumatic syndrome disease. We know we can create PTSD with VR very easily. You put a VR mask, you experience an horror games. Some people with just like that make a PTSD syndrome. It's very efficient in creating syndromes like that. But it's very efficient to cure them as well with it. And that's why as well the army is very interested in it. Anyway, many people have talked about that, but it's a, you know, it's fear. It's a very deep feeling. Empathy is much more subtle, and there is no empathy syndrome. You know, it's that's something very different. But to underline what just Catherine said before, for example, we know from VR experience where people put goggles on it and switch bodies with another person. For example, if a man puts VR and ends up with a woman body, their experience changed drastically. It means that some men or some male are very much more aware of for example, feminist problem after they've experienced a VR as a female. Or last year there was a project, or 2 years ago there was a project on the GSGS. I'll let you go on the videos archives that was using avatars of Freud, where people should state their problem to the Freud avatar, and then they were putting the goggles on and reliving their problem as if they were Freud listening to their previous avatar. And the emotional response was just out of this world. People were really empathetic and more understanding about their own problems, just because they relived it, once saying it and once hearing it from another avatar point of view. So there is a lot to do with it. But the point, again, is that that is another thing that comes up very often. It's a bit dangerous because PTSD syndrome can be created. Human psyche is very subtle and we don't master it completely. And everybody doesn't answer the same way. And on the other hand, the academic way of assessing results is very difficult. It has many problems to say, okay, this is how it should react, or this is what's the level of, I don't know, feeling should be, or even cortisol. We know cortisol is a good indicator, but some people may have very high cortisol and say, oh, I'm not stressed at all, and some others could just jump out of the window. So it's very difficult. With simple feelings, it's a bit more known, but it's a very good question. And I would really much hear about the study in the end of life project. What's the response so far? Don't jump to conclusion, but do you have already interesting result with the with the two exercise in parallel with the mic?
You are spoiling next year, Sam. But,
Oh.
we'll hear Sylvia.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. So we started the project last year during the COVID. So we lost our first pre-test, and we had to start it again. And we only performed the pre-test. So currently, we only have data before the use of the game, and the game is sent, but I don't know. So next GSGS, yes, and yes, the trouble is to have a sample big enough in order to produce interesting statistical analysis like mixed models, which can take into account the difference between subject and the difference because we have intra and inter-individual differences, and with such analysis, it can be we can take this variable into account. But yes, I don't really know if people who will be more or less empathic, or but already it's hard to assess empathy because currently there are not so much results about mark of empathy in interaction. So social interaction, social cognitive skills can be assessed with different tests or questionnaire, but in an ecological situation, it's quite hard to grasp mark of empathy, and sometimes what we assess is not fine enough, or is perhaps not related with empathy. So that is good to use game, because it will help the academy to assess or to define empathy too, because we used for example in the interaction we used different theme related to empathy, etc. And if it works, it will help the researchers to say, yeah, such theme really induce empathic response. And so I think gamification is good for the practice, but as well the research too.
For the outcome, and we're looking forward to next year to hear about that. I have two last questions that I want to ask you guys, and anyone as well can participate, not only the authors. If the ones listening wants to participate, just feel free to do so. One of the question is, we've seen a lot in healthcare with connected objects in those last years, healthcare with watches, with bracelets, with everything around connected objects. Have you ever seen serious games about healthcare with connected objects? I haven't seen any. And I'm wondering why the serious games in healthcare are not taking up the pace with the technology that is actually changing the healthcare in the whole world. Are serious games late on that? Shouldn't they be able to use that in the games? What do you think about that? Have you seen any serious games towards healthcare that are using measures from connected objects, for example? So I don't know if anyone has seen one or anyone has an opinion on why it's not the case.
I'm not sure I can. I'm not sure I grasp the question. So I haven't seen truly serious game like working on Mind Maze. We are using like technology to rehabilitate patients. We are not using serious gaming to train professionals, so maybe out of a question. There's quite some things which is interesting about bringing technology into the hospital. We had like a lot of improvement from patient, but we had like we are always facing a bit of resistance because when you bring something to the medical field, you need to bring the added value in terms of medical conditions. So in order to be able to put the product in the hand of a patient, you need to to prove clinical benefits. And it's why usually in the field, it takes much more time for technology to reach in, because as long as the clinical benefit for the patient health is not proven, we can't have a risk of installing this new technology, because everything you do with a patient comes with some risk, and there's always this weight imbalance. And I think it's mainly why it's more difficult for new technology to enter the medical world. I don't know.
It could be one of the.
I'm engineer, so I'm not. I'm more on the engineering side, but I've been like a lot in contact in trying to designing new type of interaction. It was mainly NOAID patients. After, we are using a lot of technology for research, for clinical trials. There's a lot of research, and there new technology is quite used in studies and research now to interact that. But I think there's a time between the studies and the products and it takes time. And I think it's a good thing, but it takes time. As you mentioned, Sam, like about creating PTSD with VR experience, and we need to be careful about how we bring this technology also in the field.
Yeah, and I must add that the problem with all these devices is often a problem of data. Personal data is already not mastered. The problem is not mastered on a regular basis in the world in general. And with medical data, we end up with a very touchy subject. So even as for research purpose, there could be big problem to tackle, big legal problem to tackle, even before trying to put a detector or whatever in the hand of patients.
And if you know me, I had a game on privacy and
Yeah.
data, so I'm of course sensible to this subject. Assunta, I just wanted to ask you, have you thought about maybe monitoring the health rate of your subjects, of the professional that are resolving some stressful situations? Was that a question? Was that maybe one of the things you thought of it? Building up the game, and you maybe didn't do it because of technological reason or something, or did you had this question at all? We cannot hear you, and maybe your screen is frozen. I'm not sure. Maybe you can turn off the video if the connection is not so good. Can you still hear? You can hear us? Yes, but we can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
We still can't hear you. So maybe you'll have to connect again, I guess. Maybe you can try to get out of the session and come back, because we are seeing your mic going on and off, but there's no sound coming in. I'll let you. Maybe you can just try to just really get out of Zoom and come back in the session, and we will be able to hear you. But then I'll address my last question, waiting for maybe that to happen. We are talking today about the training professional, and the question is, when you are playing a game, it's not really the real life. We are all agreeing on that, I guess. So if you're training a professional with a game, at the end, how do you know that it's not a good gamer, but it's a good professional? Can we do the difference? Can we can we see the difference between someone who's good at the game or someone who's good as a professional? Can we really see this difference? And we'll start with you, Sylvia. Maybe it would be the conclusion.
Maybe
Or some.
maybe I give my 5 cents about it. It's like asking if professional sportsmen are really sportsmen. We have, since ages, people say, yeah, but electronic games, I don't understand how it's considered a sport, electronic sport. These guys playing on a computer. But when you think about it, there is many people that are reaching to the television every week to see football matches on their TV. And it's just people watching professional playing a game. And it's exactly the same. They are professionals. And I think that when you are a professional chess player, even if you play chess, you're still professional.
That could be one of the answer, but how do you assess that really people are not just good at the game, that they've done the skills that you want them to learn in the serious game? Sylvain, maybe?
Yeah, it's all the matter of like how much the game is a metaphor toward the reality. It's like a bit also what you see in education. We pass a lot of diplomas, and after people with like the huge reward because they're good at making tests, are they good in the while they're in the working place? And I think it's really the same issue. It's often difficult. It's really easy to assess the person on the game because you are in this virtual bubble and environment, and you can put grades and skill sets.
Yeah.
You have the score, and it's always like very challenging to put that in the real life, because the real life it's the same with the simulation and with the automation. I think it's back to that. It's like you have this complex environment and you have this complex system, and you need to extract, okay, what is somebody fulfilling good? Is it something that integrates well? It's a mixture of integrating well with the team you are working to, the environment, like responding to your responsibility. And my personal view on that is like the game should not train you to be a good professional. It should train you on specific skill sets, because making an overall game, it's a dream that may become true, but it's a huge task and it will always be flawed in some way. So for me, the future for gamification, or actually the immediate future for gamification, is really was tiny skill set. Like, okay, my game is learning something, and there you will have like you can have result on this particular task you have been trained with, and then you can use a metaphor. That's not the issue.
Maybe keep our feet on the ground. Assunta, you're just back, so we'll try maybe your mic.
Yes.
Cool, we can hear
Check.
you, so you have the floor.
Okay, what was the question before? Because I don't remember. I have a loss of memory.
No problem. The question was just, have you thought in producing your game, have you thought to have some biometrics measures?
Yes, I think the next step is, yes, I think the next step for my thesis is to have biometrics measure about stress with some captor around the nurses, just to check if there is a changing level stress in triage process in simulation or with the serious game. I don't have now the methods, but just to thinking about that, how much stress she have when she's doing triage.
Linked to the game, does those measures change something in the game, or is this
yes
game or not?
I don't know. I have to check about stressor, because there is no evidence now what is the most stressful events in triage process. I don't know. There is a very common things, but how is the most stressful event in the triage process for the nurses? I don't know.
Maybe the game could help. So
yeah, maybe.
I think we've done quite a good conversation about those topics and issues. I don't know, Sam, if you have a conclusion, or from my point of view, It was very interesting to hear you about those topics about simulation, about emotions, because I think in those healthcare-oriented serious games, those are really issues that that all the serious game makers should address.
Yes, I will thank everybody on behalf of the GSGS'20 committee, especially you, Julian, for chairing this session. I've put in the chat. I've put the proceedings of this year, so you can all download them. It's a big PDF with everything, and I'll share a link as well to our website, gsgs.ch, where you can go and download the proceeding of last year if you're interested of a project that have been submitted the previous years. I will give rendezvous to everyone on the next session, and thank you all. Thanks a lot to the participants, and goodbye.
See you next week.